nothing now.
Well, well, Doug keeps telling me that. I actually have a gavel at home that from my dad was supervisor.
What town is he supervisor?
He was supervisor in the early 2000s. He died in 24. Oh, Wellsville. And then after he was supervisor, he was mayor. Wellsville. No, Wellsville, New York. It's down the southern tier, near Alfred. Oh, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out on this fine spring evening. Don't look out there, you won't believe it, but it's true. First on our agenda tonight is Girl Scout Troop 3822, who they had some technical difficulties, so they're going to wing it. We do it after.
As you are noticing, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. This is a great lesson for our girls that life doesn't always go as you planned, but we're going to wing it and we're going to present anyway and move forward. So without further ado, Girl Scout Troop 3822.
I was remiss, I was supposed to mention that in the event of the emergency, there are 3 exits from this room. That one goes directly outside, that one goes into the foyer, that one goes into my office and out to the hall. That one goes nowhere. It's a closet.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, great.
We're a big group.
Hello, we are Girl Scout Troop 3822 of Northeastern New York, and we are here to present how we plan to achieve our Bronze Award. We are a troop of 15 girls, and we have been a troop for 5 years. Our girls are from Ballston Spa in Malta. We are very grateful to be here presenting our idea. How do I go to the next? Okay.
What is the Bronze Award? The Bronze Award is a Girl Scout project that takes teamwork, leadership, and determination. This award is the highest honor a junior Girl Scout can achieve. It requires a minimum of 20 hours of planning and building from each Girl Scout. The purpose of this project is to benefit our local community in Malta, and we are excited to share our goal with you.
Gaga Pit is a fun sport using a soft foam ball that is very similar to dodgeball. It combines running, jumping, and quote dodging while trying to hit opponents below the knee. The pit is where the game is played. We want a Gaga Pit because we think it is a good idea for siblings and for people who want to play Gaga.
Best location and why? We have looked at the plans and decided on the location in between fields 1 and 4. Here are the reasons why we think that this location is the best choice. It does not block the entrance. The Gaga Pit is off to the side so parents can enjoy the game while they're watching their kids play.
Building materials as suggested by Unlimited Camper Source. 4x4 by 10s pressure treated or cedar cut in half. 8 posts by 5. 2x12 by 10s. Design overview. Create a wooden octagon. We would like to use unlimited camp resources designed to guide us. The plan are 20 inches denominator court with 36 wall on each side. The cost of the materials is roughly $750 in materials. There may be additional costs depending on the requirements for the playing service ground.
Ideas for fundraising money to support this project: a lemonade stand, bake sale or treat sale, dinner fundraiser such as Chipotle, Panera, and Pizza Works, a car wash, penny drive, and business donations.
What do we need from the board? First, we'll need approval. We will need your guidance building the pit. When we have the pit built, we'll need it inspected so we know it's safe to be used. We'll also need any town requirements for the Gaga Pit, such as ground prep, permanency for town maintenance.
How will this give back to the community? The Luther Forest Athletic Fields brings in tons of families, locally and far away. Having something fun for siblings to do will make the fields even more desirable. Thank you so much for inviting us to present today. We hope that you give us approval to move forward with our project.
One thing I just want to add is that this was also done by another troop in the town of Ballston. They did it a couple years ago at Jenkins Park, so if you have any questions or anything, I'm sure Mr. Connolly can answer some questions about any issues that they had there. I've reached out to him, but I haven't gotten a response yet. Okay. Good job.
So how big did you say the Gaga Pit was going to be?
No, yeah, no.
4x8.
How big?
Sorry, it wasn't a trick question.
Well, it would have been easier if they could actually show it.
Yeah.
The length is 36 feet by 36 feet.
And did I hear that from us you'd need help with the our maintenance to basically level the ground that it would be on?
Well, there's that, but what do you want? So this is an octagon. If you were able to see it, you would have seen it's an octagon. The walls are wooden walls that are 36 and not 36, about 3 feet high, I believe they were. And what are your requirements for the ground inside? So like the town of Boston required a mat because you're not going to want to pick up a lawnmower and put it inside. This is completely enclosed all sides.
How do you get in?
They climb over, they're kids, they can climb.
And you could also put like a step inside to get out because they, the design that we were looking at had.
Come on up, Lily.
Sorry. The design that we were looking at had a little, I think it was like a little hook that you would put into the wood. That would be a step for the help the campers get out of the pit, but you could kind of use that for anybody.
What are you guys doing in that pit again? Is it like a dodgeball?
You want to come up? So part of the challenge, we had a very thorough presentation that you would actually see and sort of understand a little bit more clearly. So I think that that's the challenge we have here, but I will send it later. But girls, someone come up and just re-explain what Gaga Ball is so everybody in the audience understands. Bella, you want to come up?
Gaga ball is where you have this ball and you try to not get hit with it, and you're like hitting it with your hand, and you can't get hit from like knees down, and it's completely safe, and I don't think you'll get hurt from it. So yeah, and yeah.
Go ahead. She's going to show you what the pit looks like.
Where did you want to build this at?
They want to do it in the Luther Forest athletic fields.
Between fields 1 and 4?
I think, is that what you said, between field 1 and 4?
I have to say something that some of our best projects in this town, have been constructed by residents and groups, and not the town, by the way. Very successful. Looking forward to this.
That's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could send the presentation to Jen. She can forward it to the rest of the board. I know we did meet with Kristen Gottman, our Director of Parks and Rec, so.
And Terry.
And Terry, that's right, we had Terry there too,
Right.
so.
Yes.
Great.
So, anything else? Anyone want to add anything? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
having
so
us.
much.
Thank you.
Good job, ladies. Go right on out.
Perfect. Thank you. Pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
And, yeah, you don't have to stay, ladies.
There it is.
Yeah.
Just like kind of touch the ball. As a pit.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have an annual presentation from the Malta Athletic Association.
Hello. The Malta Athletic Association runs the Luther Forest Fields and maintains taking care of them. Takes care of all the garbage and bathroom and mowing. Our programs, the soccer club and Miss Scotty's, Boston Spa Soccer Club and Miss Scotty's have their programs run there. And we work between the town and the clubs, trying to make sure everything's run smoothly. So overall, we support both the club and the town, trying to make sure things run smoothly. I didn't bring a large presentation because I was sick all weekend long, so I dropped the ball. But Patty's going to describe the things we pay for and let you know what things we take care of.
Patty Tesh, I'm the treasurer. So I put together the little annual report that we do every single year. It's just basically the expenses and the income that we have. The biggest expenses we have are the garbage. We upgraded the size of the dumpsters this year, so that's a bigger expense on our part. And maintenance of the mowers and the gator. Those are the biggest. Income is basically we charge the clubs an annual fee. We also collect 25% of all the profits for the concession booths when they run their programs. And rentals, sorry, I'm reading your thing. And rentals to the fields. Those are our main sources of income. What did you want to say?
Bathrooms, we
Yeah.
take care of all
Oh,
that.
yeah, we take care of all the bathrooms and the paper
Cleaning,
products
yeah.
and cleaning them. And just ground maintenance, making sure everything is okay. We report it to the town if we see anything, hazardous, a problem. So I don't know. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So where are the rental fees reflected on this?
I'm waiting on the rental. We only had one rental this year for softball, and it was $450, and I still haven't gotten the check. That was the New York State high school softball.
Okay, so you only had one rental?
Yes.
What about the fields in Malta Community Park and Shenandoah?
We didn't rent to no one, because of COVID, a lot of things slowed down, so we didn't have the rentals we used to have. Before was Albany Rush rented for a whole season, like on Sundays. The rugby club uses Shenandoah Town Park on Sundays, so a lot of times there's not a lot of rental space there. But we've been approached by Blackwatch Soccer, possibly renting this in the spring. Clifton Park with cricket, but they never got back to me if they wanted to pursue that, if they wanted to put some kind of pad down maybe.
So on your website, for both Miss Scotty's and the Ballston Spa Soccer Club, there are clinics and things like that are being hosted in the summer, so you don't rent the fields for those clinics?
Usually they're run through the club, like the people like myself or Brian Reddersdorf, he's the girls goalie coach. He's the varsity girls coach. A lot of times he'll run a program through the soccer club. So anything run through the soccer club, typically they're not renting because it's through the club. And same thing with I believe with Miss Scotty's.
Yeah,
has
all
the same-
the pitching clinics and all that, because it's
run through the club.
You get the entry into those clinics because you've already
So
paid
it's a
the
one
fees.
price, one fee? What is the fee?
The fee, I don't have the, so this year we actually I lined up, SUNY Albany is gonna run a camp and they're gonna pay us rental. We have a Manchester United, they're coming in for one day. That'll be another rental. So there are some things we booked this year, because now that COVID's over, we're starting to become more
What is the
active.
current fees for the two clubs right now annually?
The
Membership?
$1,000.
But originally, they had to pay in to get into the Malta Athletic Association to join, $5,000 to originally.
So for
join.
$1,000, Miss Scotty's pays $1,000 for the year, and they can run unlimited clinics there, is what you're saying?
Well, then they pay a certain percentage based on the revenue they make from the concession stands too. They pay that additionally.
They pay you, what does the town of Malta get?
The town of Malta takes a weed whacker and weed whacks around the fence. That's the only thing the town does. The town does nothing. We take care of the fields totally.
Well,
They do no maintenance at the fields.
well, they don't do field maintenance, but they do other maintenance. And the other thing is,
Broke,
We have ownership though, right?
yeah.
Okay, I was just checking that we have ownership.
We're just like the middleman.
I understand. I think we're not getting bang for our buck then.
and the town of Malta incurred really significant expenses, almost $20,000 in expenses last year, not including the time that our maintenance crew spent over there. We pay for the treatments of the fields, we pay for the water. I don't know, we bought a rather expensive lawnmower, so we do
It
have
is
expenses.
expensive too. I've seen
There-
that
there-
water and it's.
There's a couple of things in your contract that I just, want to question. Basically, it says that the MAA shall operate the fields for the benefit of Malta and Stillwater's residents and businesses. The MAA agrees to attempt to make the fields available to as many groups and types of sporting events as reasonably possible, including access to adults and non-structured activity. It actually calls in your contract for a scheduled time for just pickup games and open fields. And I don't really see anything on the schedule that says this
No,
is.
we don't schedule anything in the open times. That's all for open. We don't ever schedule.
So there's, right, so there are times when it doesn't show something on the
Right.
schedule?
Yes.
Anybody
They
anywhere
know
can
the
just
club
go?
knows that that's open time for the town or anyone that wants to
Who,
just
who,
drop
who's
in,
they?
that they
Who
can.
knows? They?
Pardon me?
When you say they, I always get worried when you say they know. Who's they?
Public.
The public, the
Public.
person that takes care of the calendar, he makes sure, like, say, for both Miss Scotty's and the soccer club, they won't post any, you can't go there, like, say, next week we're on vacation. That's open for anyone besides the club to use.
I just think what Cynthia's getting at is they, the public, is probably less informed of the availability of what's there. I think that's on us to, maybe to educate or promote and advertise.
We could do that.
Another question is, do you have MAA meetings?
Yes, just had,
Um,
very informally, because like,
We have Gary and I, and then 2 members of soccer club and 2 members of the softball club.
I think when you have those meetings, I think you're supposed to include our Director of Parks and Rec. I don't know if that's just,
okay,
you know,
sure.
make sure she's invited, because I'm
Yep,
pretty sure
of
in the
course.
contract, that's, so, and, you know, I mean, I think our responsibility here is to make sure that our parks are, that they benefit, you know, as many of the residents of the town of Malta. And like I say, one of the things that concerns me is the lack of rentals to any other groups, because, you know, that's,
I think like Global Foundries fell off because they stopped doing it. They were a
Right.
huge rental.
but I mean, there
one
must be
time.
other organizations that, I mean, there's lacrosse clubs.
I just think
Be
it's
reached
a
out to?
product of advertising and marketing. If people don't know, they don't know. And therefore, you know,
It would be hard to rent to any of those organizations during the spring. The park is packed from, from 5 o'clock on with all the different teams. From the club is, Boston Spa Soccer Club is the biggest club in the area now. It's grown so much. It
yeah, but
has.
you just said there's a schedule, so there's open time. So if we
There
advertise it,
is- Honestly, in the spring, if you look on that schedule, you probably won't see much open time because all the.
let me
practice-
rephrase that, throughout the year,
Yes, definitely, yeah.
there's open available time
During the
where
summer, yeah.
revenue could help us offset the costs.
Yeah.
So if we advertise and market that availability throughout the year, that would benefit us as an organization and Parks and
Do that,
Recreation.
Definitely.
And-
Because I think for, basically, I'm just looking at $2,000 for the year is, whew, you know, heck, that's a great bargain,
Yeah, we were just talking at last time, we want to raise that to 2,000 per.
you know, for,
Because it hasn't changed in a few years.
well,
Expenses have gone up.
I don't want to
so-
let too much out of the bag, but my daughter plays travel softball, and it's $700-800 a pop for, you know, an event on a weekend, you know. It's, so,
A lot of that goes, I mean, I'm not, you know, I was in softball for a very long time, all the umpire fees and all that kind of stuff, so, you know,
$1,000,
Yeah.
not a lot to go around. All right.
Cynthia, how old is that contract anyways?
Well, it's
Is
a,
that-
it's a year-to-year contract. This particular contract, I believe, was modified, I don't know,
I think it was under-
2017?
Yeah, it's an annual renewable
It's an annual
contract,
renewal.
but it's,
Do you think it's,
Originally, it
Time
was
to-
2012. Yeah, I think probably it's time to
well,
review it.
through
and-
it as
Yep,
with them and the town and talk about any
yeah, and
issues that are out there. One issue that I have is, I saw the water and the fertilizer from the field, and I was shocked.
yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of money. I think it's time to go back through the that contract and constructively address any questions that they have or that we have. For example, mower repairs, I was under the impression that the town took care of those. Is that true?
We pay for them, though. The town does the maintenance and then bills us.
Okay, I got you. Glad you clarified that. As far as the trimming on the side of the fences and all, you know,
Yeah, Terry and his team do that.
but do they have to do it?
Well,
I mean, that's
We
just,
could talk, we could have a meeting and talk about that,
yeah,
definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
these are things that ought to happen on the side to update the contract.
and one of my biggest concerns is we should be seeing these fields actually rented. We should be, the MAA, I believe, should have income from renting the fields. They're used all the time, and the MAA really is getting very little. Paul, I think you.
Yeah, I just want clarification. So some of the revenues that the association receives are used to reimburse the town for certain expenses, but not all expenses.
Yeah, I think the only thing we get from the town, the bill, is for the maintenance of the mowers. They do like the oil changes and the belts and all that kind of stuff, and annually send me a bill and I pay that.
Okay, so there's no reason the contract couldn't be renegotiated so that the town is made whole and it doesn't cost the town anything. It's a user fee, right? People use the fee, they pay for the fields.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is if the fields were, I mean, of course, there's a, desire to light those fields. If we had been making money all this time, there should be a significant pot of money in there that could go toward, the lighting of the soccer fields,
Well,
but
we could talk about, like you said, look at the contract and see what you think maybe would be a better price to charge each organization. We're just the middleman.
and additional organizations, the contract does say you have to be different sports and different.
Right.
I know at one time there was another organization that wanted to be part of the MAA and it didn't happen. I don't know if they still do,
A
but
lot of I know lacrosse at one time wanted to be, but their use of the fields and the time was exactly the same as soccer. So being able to split that was very difficult, and then, so that didn't happen. So same thing with like a football.
The running club originally wanted to come about,
right.
but then because the $5,000 fee they didn't have, and then they were gonna think about paying it like over time, which was, fine. But they don't really use the park that much. They use the trails offside the park.
yeah, they wanted to use it for staging, basically, of
Right.
of events.
But they didn't have the
That big
5,000
field,
at the
yeah.
time, but we said we were willing to work something out
Yeah.
and pay it over time.
Okay,
So,
all
I
right.
have a question on the lighting over there. That's fully installed and that was completed, when was it?
Right, 2021 maybe,
At
that the lighting, was it before that?
It was, there was the end of last year.
The end of last year.
No,
So do you, yeah,
was
yeah.
it? But that's the first time I thought something was
I was gonna
further away.
ask how's the interest in it, but that isn't enough time to get
Yeah,
it's all-
data on it.
the goal is, if we get lights for one of the soccer areas, to create a rec program for the town. That's what I said, because that's what I'm gonna retire from teaching. That's something I said I would be willing to do to help the town out, build it up, and then build in the rental fees and, use that money to pay off offset bills.
Yeah, I think it's time that contract is updated anyways.
Everything is lighted but the soccer fields. That's the last thing.
But the soccer fields.
Everything but the soccer fields, softball fields, the parking lot, but not the soccer fields. Gary, does anybody in the Malta Athletic Association, Boston Spa Soccer Club, or Miss Scotty's, do you collect any salary for all the work that you're doing? It's all volunteer?
All volunteer.
Thank you.
We've never paid anyone, so
Yep.
we've both done it volunteer the whole time. And the board members.
Who normally does all the fields, mows the fields for the softball and the soccer?
Each club pays their own person to do it. For a long time, it was volunteers mowing, and that just got way too time consuming. So each club pays somebody to mow their own fields.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming out.
Yeah, we'd love to like
Yeah,
sit
we'll-
down and
we'll-
redo the
we'll be in touch.
contracts. Yeah.
Yep.
It's been a long time. Thank you very much.
You still got a little daylight out there to enjoy. Next up, Mr. Lansing. Let's see if his technology works.
Okay, good evening, Scott Lansing with Lansing Engineering, representing 2354 Route 9 mixed-use development. I'm also here tonight with Mr. Jeffrey Booth and Jeffrey Knox, the applicants for the project of New York Development Group Malta LLC. So what I have up on the screen right now is the current zoning map. This is just before the revisions that were recently made. But as far as the location of the site, we're down kind of the central south end of the town, so just north of the village of Round Lake. Zooming into the area, so here is the village of Round Lake in this area, and the parcels are comprised of 5 parcels in this general vicinity. This is the older zoning map. So this has the C2 zone, which is a little bit of an abbreviated zone, then the R1 zone, and then the LC zone located to the west of that. There wasn't a recent amendment to the zoning. This is that amended zoning plan. So basically, the former C2 line was right about in this vicinity. That line has been extended and pushed back into this vicinity. As far as the parcels with an overlay, these yellow does outline the 5 parcels that I mentioned. That is approximately 127 acres. So this is the C2 area by Route 9, which is in this vicinity. Then we have the R1 area and then the LC zone area. So the other primary purpose of this map is to give the board a general idea of where the parcels are relative to the surrounding uses. So off on the west side, we have I-87. This is the Round Lake bypass, and then we have Route 9 in this vicinity. And then we have the Malta Gardens mobile home park directly to the north. Other things to note are the Zim Smith Trail and then the Zim Smith Mid-County Trail, which comes up and goes through the western edge of the parcel. Another thing to note are the cyan colored areas. These are wetlands. The slope does go down towards the waterway and towards the Zim Smith Trail. Coming out of the bank on the slope, there are some wetlands that come out of that area, and those are demarked by that hatched-in area. As far as the proposed development area, out of the 127 acres or so of land, the applicants are proposing a development area focused more towards the Route 9 area. So this would be not only the C2 area, but a small portion of the R1, and that is 43 acres out of the overall 127. This plan has rotated 90 degrees, so we now have Route 9 on the bottom. North orientation is towards the right of the plan, and then we have the Round Lake bypass. This line right here marks where the LC zone is, so there's a small section of R1, and the majority of the parcel is currently zone C2. As far as what is being proposed, we do have the primary access off of Route 9 in this vicinity. There is commercial along the frontage of Route 9. There are 2 commercial areas, one on the right-hand side, approximately 25,000 square feet, and the one on the left, approximately 12,000 square feet. So primary entrance off of Route 9, and then there are connection points from that primary entrance going into the commercial areas. Also a secondary entrance to the commercial on the northern portion of the site. Coming in on the boulevard, want a grand entrance for the overall development, central circular traffic area to disperse traffic to various parts of the development. We are proposing a community building direct center of that main entrance, and behind that an active and passive open space area. So the community building is proposed to be 5,000 square feet, and then to the rear of that we have a 1.5 acre active passive open space area. Another area of active passive open space, primarily a buffer, I want to just note is on the northern portion of the site to the existing residential uses off to the north. Coming off of the circular area off towards the north or right-hand side, the applicants are proposing apartments. In that area, we're proposing 200 apartments, multifamily units. Off towards the left or the south, there are condominiums. There'd be 100 condominiums shown in this area. And then further to the south, twin townhome units, 50 twin townhome units. And then last but not least, off on the far south would be single-family residents, and that would be 20 single-family residents in that area. We also have another access point on the southern end to provide 2 points of access to all the various uses in the parcel. As far as utilities, water, storm sewer, public water, public sewer would be extended to the parcel. Stormwater would be managed on site. And this overall drawing is more of just a land use sketch to show generally the mass and scale of what is being proposed as an idea for this plan development district. This is obviously not a detailed design drawing, but something to give the board an idea of what the general design intent for the project is. Last but not least, I failed to mention, as far as the trail system, we have the active passive open space behind the community building, centrally located for the residents. We're also proposing a trail that would connect the Route 9 corridor back to the Zim Smith Mid-County Trail. So that's essentially it for the nuts and bolts of the project. I do have Mr. Jeff Booth from New York Development Group, Malta LLC, to talk a little bit more about the project. Thank you.
Good evening. For the board members who don't recognize me, Jeff Booth, my business partner Jeff Knox is back here. Scott gave a great overview of...
Jeff, you have to actually talk in the microphone so the people at home can hear you.
All right. Scott gave a great overview of the technical aspects of the project. I just wanted to touch base a little bit on why we proposed this project and what's going on, not just in Malta, but in the capital region and across the country. Housing affordability is a real issue. And the cost of roads, the cost of pipes, the cost of roofing and shingles, everything has gone up. And if you do a 100-lot subdivision or a 50-lot subdivision and you have 100-foot roads or 100-foot lots for each one of those, the cost of each one of those is exorbitant. The only way to reduce your cost of housing is to increase your density. And that's why we kind of looked at this project and said, you know, the best way to approach this is with something that's attainable for your teachers, for your firemen, for your policemen, for the people who work at Target. Most of these people can't afford $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 houses, and that's where we are. So we looked at this and said, what can we do to make it more affordable for the typical person, two-family, maybe they have a couple of children, and we looked at being able to increase our density. And so we put in apartments, we put in townhouses, single family, and we put in condos. And it's a mix of housing types because not everybody wants to live in an apartment. Some people do. Not everybody wants to live in a single family. Not everybody wants the maintenance. So we looked at this, how can we kind of broad brush approach this? And this is what we came up with. We did not do a detailed plan because this is a concept and we wanted to sit down with the board and get some input from the board. We understand that what's here right now is not ultimately going to be, if the project moves forward, what gets approved. But it's a good way to start the discussion. In the application, there was no real detail about what the public benefit would be. And on a PDD, there has to be a public benefit. And one of the things that we had discussed, and I met with Cynthia the other day briefly, and we talked a little bit about this. We'd initially understood that Maltaville water needed extension and understand that that actually has been taken care of now, that district has been formed. There's money in the budget for that. Cynthia and I talked a little bit about this. One of the things the town is trying to do is to provide more access, I think. And so we looked at this, and Cynthia and I talked a little bit about this, but sidewalk access. So if you were to look along the whole frontage of the project, which would be from here all the way down, most of that land is not accessible for us. So if you notice that we only have a couple small areas that we would have access to. So it's privately owned all along Route 9. But we would propose putting sidewalks along that entire frontage there. And if you look down to the south, that corner piece at the bypass, you'll notice that there's a vacant parcel there. Well, that's proposed to be a senior project right now. And I believe they are putting sidewalks across the front. So we would connect their sidewalks across the front all the way up to the end of our project. Also, if you look right over here, this spot right here, there's a crosswalk that accesses the Zim Smith Trail, correct, Cynthia? So running a sidewalk all along the frontage would allow all the residents in this area to access all the way down to Zim Smith, as well as Scott pointed out that we're proposing a trail, a natural trail that goes through the back that would go down to Zim Smith. It's a substantial public benefit, if you will, to provide that. And we know that ultimately the town would love to have access sidewalks up and down Route 9, but I think this is a great start to provide a public access and a public benefit. So that's kind of our overview on this. I know that Cynthia and I talked about this a little bit. Maybe the mix of housing types might want to change a little bit. I think Cynthia, and she'll talk on her own, I'm sure, thought maybe some less apartments, maybe a better mix, maybe more townhouses or condos, but a little different mix of units. And I think we're certainly open to that discussion. And again, the reason we put this in as a bubble sketch and not all these detailed plans is because we knew this was going to be an ongoing discussion. So happy to take questions from the board.
Before we do that, I just want to take a minute to explain to the public who may not actually understand what's really happening here. What they're proposing is a planned development district, which the idea is that they're trying to propose something that really isn't consistent with the zoning. And so were it consistent with the zoning, it would just go to the planning board. The town board would have no input other than if there was something odd that brought it to us. But because it's not really consistent with the zoning, this board has to either say basically, okay, you can move ahead, or no. At this point, this board can decide, either way. We can say no, we can say yes, we can say we don't like this, we do like this. So that's why it's before this board instead of the planning board. And so for that, I'll open it up to my colleagues.
I like the fact about the sidewalks. It's a huge issue on that side, all the way up Route 9. Huge safety issue. I like that. The trail in the back, yeah, I gotcha. Is there any other room for negotiations on something more? Something maybe in the water or infrastructure?
I guess you'd have to be more specific on what it is that you might be looking for. Certainly we can have a conversation about that.
Okay. We'll put that on the to-do. I love the fact that you have tried to address the affordable housing that nobody in town knows how to describe what it is, but I have been approached by numerous town corporations that say they have a lot of their employees have to drive from outside of town to be employed at Arnoff. He has stated very clearly. I like the fact that it's a transitional. I believe that the rental houses, homes, apartments are on the larger side in town, almost like unaffordable, practically. What's your plans to keep the apartment, that the apartments and the townhouses affordable?
Well, so part of it is the density, right? The cost of putting the roads in, the infrastructure, all these is the same if you put 1,000 feet of road in, and if you do 10 houses or if you do 100 apartments or 75 condominiums, it's the same. So just by the nature of increasing the density, you reduce the cost on a per unit basis, which allows us to offer not just the apartments. The apartments are one aspect of this, but the for sale product, which would be condominiums or townhouses or the single family homes, allows you to offer something that your cost on each one of those units is less just by the mere fact that your cost of infrastructure is less. And listen, we're business guys, right? So we want to be competitive in the market. So our goal is to be able to keep our prices below everybody else's.
You're not doing it for your health, right?
We're not. I mean, this is a for-profit business, you know? And unfortunately, New York State, they want to see 800,000 new houses. We don't have those programs really largely in the capital region unless you're doing subsidized housing, which this is not. This is not proposed to be a Section 8 project or a subsidized project. This is market stuff, but it allows for the typical person who has a family or a young couple or maybe a senior couple that wants to spend some of their time here and some of it in Florida. They've got their kids and their grandkids here. Where do they go? They don't want to take care of the lawn. They don't want to take care of snow removal any longer. So this offers a lot of opportunity. People coming in for the new Global Foundries, the phase 2 plant, the next fab. Some of those people are going to need transition housing, right? So apartments are going to be one aspect, but some of those people are going to want to live here. Some will buy a townhouse or a condo. So I think there's a real need for this. We don't have those programs supported in New York State up here. Go to New York City and they're throwing a lot of money down there, but we don't have that money here.
You know, Jeff, the last thing that I want to see in town is Malta looking like a Schenectady. I like the approach of a stepping stone that is available to our citizens here that is always occupied.
Right.
I don't want to see massive housing projects. I want to see a nice community to be in, to have an impact for all of us.
And I think this allows people to do that. And you'll notice that what happens is some of the people from the apartments, they enjoy the community. They make friends in and around because we have a community center and a central hub. Some of those people, when they eventually wanted to move to Malta permanently, will want to buy a townhouse or a condo or a single family. So I think you'll see some of that. But this is going to end up bringing a sense of community together because it's a variety of housing stock in this area. The other thing that we didn't really talk about was one of the reasons this location is so good for a project like this is it's on Route 9, so you've got a 2-lane highway in each, so 4 lanes, right, and a center turn lane, but you're right at the bypass, which puts you on the northway. So if you're going south or north, you're not clogging up the traffic in Malta with a few hundred more units. So I think this is a great location. We've got a lot of open space behind it, Route 9 on the front. We've got the senior project and the bypass in the south, and we've got the mobile home community on the north. So I think this is a great transition project for the town, and I think there's a strong need in the town for this. We hear this all the time. People show up at the sites that we've developed. They cannot afford a $600,000 home.
Jeff, I'm sorry, Greg.
No, it's
okay.
It's okay.
The single-family homes, I'm quite interested in that. Obviously, affordable housing is a concern for everybody here. I don't know how many Malta residents have children that can even afford to live in the town that they grew up in now. Right. What does the single-family home look like? What is your concept? Is it smaller, more affordable? How much land is going to be on that?
These would be smaller. They'd be smaller lot homes. So you've heard of the term traditional neighborhood design or TNDs, right? So the lots are smaller. Typically, they're pushed a little bit more forward. They have sidewalks throughout them and a little more of a community feel. It's like if you look back to the way communities were built back in the early 1900s, right? Houses were much more closer together. So it's smaller lots, not massive home sites, and more modest homes that allow someone to have a yard and a grill and a garage and not take up a massive amount of space. So that's really kind of what we're looking for. Not half acre lots. These would be much smaller lots.
Thank you. I have a couple other questions, two more. You have 127 acres. You're going to use 43 of them, or this proposed using 43. What do you plan on doing with the other 84?
Well, a lot of this is unusable from the aspect of either it's the Zim Smith Trail, it's the heavy slopes down to the bypass and the highway. I don't think we have a need for that land. Certainly, if the town was interested in it, we could donate that land to the town or some sort of nature conservancy, or it could be included in the HOA. But it's not going to be a maintained parcel for the most part because of what it is. There's a lot of wetlands and steep slopes.
In this concept, If you're on the Zinn Smith Trail and you looked up that hill, would you be able to see these apartments?
That's a good question. I suspect not with the heavy vegetation that's back there. I would say no.
Another concern I have is Malta Gardens. I'm concerned that the residents of Malta Gardens know that their homes are secure, that, is there a negative impact or could there be a negative impact to our residents there in Malta Gardens?
I don't think so. We did propose a green buffer between the projects to be sensitive to both sides. And I think that would largely accomplish that. We did not propose a connection of streets between those. So I don't think you're going to see an increase in traffic either coming from there or through their property. So I would say no. I don't really see a downside for them.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Well, I'm more happy to see more residential than, Malta turning into, like it says, one big strip mall and stuff. So I'd rather see houses than a whole bunch of little stores and light industrial area back there. So from my understanding, Cynthia, that's obviously not tonight, but discussions among the town board to kind of see if we want to kick it to the planning board, correct? Because don't they have some say in this,
Well-
recommendations and?
Well, eventually it would be reviewed, but right now it's not a complete application because it's the bubbles until, if this board decides that, all right, yeah, maybe we can do this, then they would have to come back with a completed application to this board before it would be referred to.
So we're not nowhere near a decisional phase of this project.
Only in that conceptually, if this board says that conceptually you can accept this, and think long and hard about that, because the next step is going to cost them money, more money than they've already spent. So, I would advise that we be quite sure that conceptually this is a
No offense, Jeff, but your money's not my concern.
No,
It's the residents of
No,
Malta
agreed,
and the
agreed.
future, because
Absolutely. Right.
I think that corridor and on Route 9, when my kid grows up and comes back in 30 years, I think it's going to be packed from Clifton Park up to Saratoga. That's just the way it is, and I think the highway is going to be the same thing on both sides, left and right. So conceptually, what is the future? Just to hold off forever in perpetuity? I love that word. Or do we make it commercial? And again, that might not be decided by this board in my tenure, but thinking long range, I'd rather than strip malls and light industrial areas, I'd rather see houses, because then people live there, and then the actual downtown Malta doesn't expand onto one big commercial place where a lot of people are coming from out of town, to use our facilities or our commercial usage.
Al, I want to point out, and it's a good argument that you make. We did look at this, and we looked at the available uses under the existing zoning, the C2 as well. You can do storage units, you can do boat and RV storage, indoor and outdoor. This could easily turn into some sort of industrial or a highly commercial project. It won't be our project because we're not going to do that.
No, it was initially proposed way back when for that area. I think when I first started, that there was going to be light industrial warehouses, and then then you're dealing with that whole deal, which is you got trucks and they're doing businesses, and it's a warehouse,
Right.
And then you got warehouse activity versus a kid playing on a swing set. It all depends what you want down.
I mean, this is not the path of least resistance for us. We've been down this road before. You all know this. So this is not the path of least resistance. We understand that.
Oh, we understand, yes.
Some would call us crazy for even approaching the town of Malta with another PDD application. But the reality is, this is a good project for this location.
Yes. And I always like to go a little bit smaller, of course, but anyhow,
Certainly.
that's a discussion for later. But no, I appreciate.
Well, you know what? The other thing is, we look at the density here, and we looked at what they allow in the downtown area, and this is less density on a per unit, per acre basis. But the other part of this is when you look at the public benefit, what's the balance between what you can afford? Extreme examples, one house. How much public benefit can I give you if I have one house there? Very little. If I did 10,000 houses, right? How much public benefit? Way more. It's got to be somewhere in between. So if you reduce it down too much, it just means there's less money to put into the kitty for the public benefit. So it's that balance in between. And I think there's room for discussion as I had with Cynthia the other day, maybe the housing mix slides around a little bit. Maybe there's a few more of this and a little bit less of this, and it's something that makes the board maybe, you know, a little happier. We have the ability to have that discussion, and I think Cynthia's going to talk about
Well,
that.
I do think it's worthy of more discussion.
Certainly.
And,
Yeah, how many twin townhomes are there going to be?
I think we had 100 condos and 75 townhouses.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, one thing that I do like is it's a nice transition between the bypass in the south coming north. It's not warehouses, it's some class in there, has some commercial, has the housings, and with the senior housing next door, I think that's a nice transition.
Sure.
Going in. I like the concept overall. I mean, I haven't seen any plans, but my position is I like the project today. For you as a company, I highly advise you, do not spend a fortune with this town, because the last time, from what I saw, you were not given the rights that you should have had before the planning board. And I apologize.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's, you know,
But that's
certainly
just
is,
my feeling.
and it's a consideration. Yeah, the fees are expensive for the
Everyone else.
PDDs, and we talked about this, and it's an expensive process to move forward. And I think that we're here looking for a very open and honest discussion with the board, because we want to know. Jeff and I, neither one of us want to hear, yeah, great project, move forward, and then everybody goes, we can't do it, after you've spent $200,000. Nobody wants to do that. I don't want to waste your time. Jeff doesn't want to. We're really looking for a project that works for the town and the community and for us as business people and developers. And I think this is that project, with some tweaks for sure, but I think there's some merit to this project in this location.
You got to start somewhere.
Right, so we're having here.
Like the project.
Thank you.
I would say move forward, and hopefully we can come to something in the center.
Great.
So, just for the record, I'm not for or against the project.
Okay.
Know enough about it yet. but
Certainly.
Just for clarity, we are, as a town board, are not being asked to decide anything right now.
We're looking for input.
If in fact the town board does approve going forward, it then goes to the planning board and then back to us, or it doesn't come back to us?
It comes back to us first. This is an incomplete
But,
application.
so the application comes to us, we give a nod one way or the other.
Yes.
If we give a nod in the affirmative, does it go to the planning board?
Yes, well, then we would refer to the planning board for
And
their,
then, and that's their final decision, is the planning board?
no,
No.
It comes
still
back
not the
here?
final decision,
Comes
right.
back here because
They
of
would
the-
have recommendations,
Okay, okay.
and then it still comes back to the town board.
Okay. Couple of questions. Does the LLC currently own the property?
No, under contract.
It's under contract. Is
Yes,
the
sir.
contract contingent upon the project being approved?
It is.
Okay. So do you have an option on it, or?
It's a contract with contingencies to go through the approval process.
And what's the timeline on the agreement?
I'd rather not talk about the specifics of the contract. It's a
That's fine.
it's a
No.
private matter for the seller.
No, I get it.
Certainly. Thank you.
And in terms of the increased density leading to spreading the fixed costs over a wider base, I thought I heard you say that those cost savings would be passed on to the homeowners.
It would be passed on to the project so that the homes are more attainable and I think a more
more
attractive
affordable. They're
price
more
point. Yeah, yeah. You know, unfortunately, we tend not to use the word affordable many times because there's the connotation with that is negative for many people. So we look at more attainable because it is more attainable to the average person.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I get it. And in terms of financing, would it be privately financed, or would it be?
A project of this size would probably be a combination of private and public, or private, our own money and bank money.
Okay.
How about that?
No, that's fair. And in answer to Craig's earlier question, I'm assuming everything's negotiable.
Everything's negotiable.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Certainly.
You know, what I want to see is the town and you guys work together on it to come up with something that's valued for the time. It's valued for our town, and it also has a little bit of profit in there.
Sure.
For you guys.
Yeah.
Some profit.
That's our hope too. Yeah.
I know it is.
One concern I have is the apartments. Apartments is, we have a lot. I think we have 1,400 in this quarter-mile stretch here. What are these apartments looking like? Are these 3-bedroom apartments or are these single-bedroom apartments that a young person will be able to afford? Because a lot of our apartments in the town, people can't even afford them.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Majority of the apartments would be 1s and 2s. We don't typically do 3s. I think 1s and 2s, and it becomes a more attainable project for most people. A lot of young professionals, young families, 1s and 2s seem to be the way to go. And we have these in other locations, and we do very well with 1s and 2s. 3s get quite large and quite expensive.
What is the apartment buildings like? I know this is all conceptual. What are you thinking? How many buildings is that?
Well, the size of these would likely be buildings between 8 and 12 units per building, typically 2 stories. I wouldn't commit. I mean, could we do a 3-story? I guess it's possible, but you try to avoid elevators if you can. So 2-story buildings typically, which I think would fit nicely on this project, and they're not huge buildings. So we would be looking at anywhere between 8 and 12 typically per building. We largely like to try and do garage space, indoor garage space for each unit. Again, we're at the conceptual stage, so as we go through the project, some of those particulars might change, but that's kind of what we would look toward.
If you had to increase the single-family homes, what would that be taken away from? Do you know?
I don't. I think that until we get to a point where we start laying out roads and lots and kind of putting things on paper, again, that's why we kind of laid this out in a bubble sketch to say we're thinking this, and this. And that's going to change, right? I mean, we have numbers on here, but I can guarantee you that none of those numbers will be exactly what they are. Even if you said, we like the townhouses, maybe it's 70, maybe it's 80, I don't know. But it would change as we kind of design the roads, the infrastructure on the project. You look at the topography, you look at stormwater. So there's many variables in there. Maybe it's a few more single-family homes in there. Maybe it's some less apartments, and maybe there's more townhouses or condominiums. I think the mix is certainly going to change as we go through this process. And again, that's why we're here. We want to have that discussion. So if you have a preference, what you'd like to see, I'd love to hear it from you and the rest of the board.
My preference is affordability. My preference is that our children be able to get a starter home, something. Almost everything in this town is almost unreachable for somebody under 30 years old, even under 40.
I know, and that's why when we looked at this, I mean, you could do a truck stop here, for gosh sakes. You could do a truck stop here with trucks coming and going and a big gas station, and looked at it and said, is that really the highest and best use for this location? And I don't think it is, but it's zoned for that, right? You could do a large gas station and trucks could come off the bypass if they wanted to. I don't think it's the best use for this location. So talking about things that your kids and the young professionals, the people coming into town, whether it's Global Foundries or working at one of the other, listen, this area is huge for tech. They're coming, whether we like it or not, whether you want them or not, they're coming, and they're going to need a place to live. But so are your kids, so are your parents, and when they retire, where are they going to live? They don't want to live on a half-acre or 1-acre lot and have to deal with snow and lawn care, so where are they going to live? This is a great opportunity for a lot of people. So the difference between single family, typically, they'd own their lot and they would maintain their own, right? So, and maybe they hire someone to do snow removal, but these are small lots. The townhouses, typically it's an ownership position for your building or your particular home and some land. Condos, typically the association owns all the land and you own each one of the individual units, and then the apartments obviously is one owner and then they maintain everything. The way we would approach this would be likely you would have a homeowners association that would deal with some of the maintenance for the snow removal, for at the very least the condos. The apartments would be privately owned, so they would take care of their own maintenance on those. The single family typically would maintain their own, but there's not a lot of them. I think like anybody, I have someone take care of snow at my house because I don't like being outside in the cold and the wind. But I think there's a variety of ways to approach this. But affordability is really the key component here. How can we make this accessible for the majority of people that aren't making $200,000 a year? How do you do that? I can't buy land, put the infrastructure in. I mean, this is not a slight against Malta, but the road spec in Malta is extreme for the amount of blacktop that has to go down. That adds to the cost of infrastructure and roads. Most towns are not that extreme, but that adds to the cost. So how do you offset that? You offset it by trying to increase your density. Not to the point where they're packed in like sardines, but you have to increase density. That is the only way to get the numbers more affordable.
Jeff, when do you need some guidance from the town board?
Well, we'd really like some guidance tonight to look at this and take back, revise our plan and come back to you again and say, this is what we heard, this is what we come up with, does this work for you? That's why I appreciate you asking these questions, Craig asking them, Al asking them. We want that feedback tonight. That's why we're here. This is not, just a feel good, show it to you and then walk away. We want good feedback from you. And we will revise the plan based on what we hear tonight.
May I ask one question?
Certainly.
What school district will that development be in?
Shenandoah, I
Is it
think.
Shen? Okay.
I'm pretty
Actually,
sure
I don't
it's
know. We'll find out for you, though.
On the other side, west of 87, I live west of 87, above 11 to 12, that's all Shenandoah with East Line. So if it
Probably
goes
Shen.
straight across on 67, it might probably be Shen, I
Probably
would
Shen.
imagine.
Okay.
But if it's Boston Spa, we can get more money for our soccer fields and ball fields.
I like the fact that that area really has to get cleaned up. I mean,
Yeah.
there's graffiti on the gas station there and
Yes.
drops off. So from that standpoint, yes, I'm a go at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Cynthia, is there methodology of how we want to kind of come up with a concept for them so they can move
Well,
forward?
first I was going to make some remarks. Ask a question. When we met and we talked about sidewalks all along there, which I think is a great community benefit, there was a conversation about whether or not you could build sidewalks on the right-of-way or you can.
We can. Scott and I talked about this, and we can do it on the right of way. It's changed. We should take advantage of DOT's position now and do it before they change their mind, and I'll say you can't do it on private.
Yeah.
But that would allow us to run sidewalks up the entire front there. Otherwise, you're trying to negotiate easements from all those individual owners, and
Right.
somebody will be a holdout.
Right.
So,
And like when we spoke, I think it's too many apartments. We talked about what affordability is, and in my mind, it is a 12 to 1,500 square foot on a small lot or whatever, that's somewhere in the 3 to 325 range, which still is an expensive home, but, and I guess the thing that concerns me is, how do we get that promise that in the end, that's the product that's going to be built, and not find out that those single-family homes are going to be in the, low 600s?
right.
I guess there's no,
I'm not sure you can, you and I had this discussion and we talked a little bit about price. And what I said to you was, there's no way to give you an exact number on anything because
Right.
I'll tell you what, I looked at the lumber index tonight and it's up over $600 a board foot. It's twice what it was in 2019. It's massive, 350 to 400. So it's up super high. When it comes down, it's a commodity. It goes up and it goes down. But what I can tell you is that roofing materials and siding, anything petroleum-based is through the roof. Lumber's up, labor's up, the insurance cost, the cost of food. You look at the inflation, and right now we've had 18 to 20% inflation over the last few years, and we're still going at 3%. So every year, costs are going up. The construction industry is more than 20%. Ductile iron pipe has more than doubled in the last couple of years. It's insane at what things cost. So to say, we're going to deliver a product that's X amount of dollars, it's an
Understood.
impossibility, right?
Right.
And I'm not sure how we would to mandate that, other than I will tell you that we're doing some other projects. We did a project over on Brookline Road, and they were approximately 1,300 and 1,700 square foot condos, and you're in the threes. The 13s
Right.
are the lower end of the threes, and the 17s are more, right? Because they're a larger unit. That's where we are. And you know what? They sold very quickly because it's a project that people say, I can afford to live there and not break the bank.
and I guess that's the other thing is, well, first of all, I don't think the location is bad for residential. I think it's good for residential. I think the road can handle it. Like you say, it might be a little problematic down at exit 11, but there's supposed to be improvements done there from Global. So I think it's a good location for residential. I think that, you're talking my language by saying, attainable. I would rather see more home ownership opportunities instead of apartments, because, if you can get into a smaller home as a young couple and build some equity over the course
Sure.
of 15 years, you can, upgrade to a different
Yeah.
sort of housing.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
I've never been a fan of condos because of the way basically they're assessed, but it is an opportunity to build some equity in a home. So my biggest comment is, I think it's a lot, just so anybody hasn't added up, this plan has almost 400 housing units
350.
in that
Yeah.
area.
Yep.
I think that's a lot. I just think that's a lot. And like I say, I would rather see more path to ownership and less rental.
Oh, well, let's take a look at that. I mean, we're happy to look at that. And you expressed that thought to me when we met, and I said to you, we'll take a look at that. And I think there's some flexibility in the way we laid this out. I appreciate the honest feedback, Again, as I said earlier, you really have to make sure that you manage the ability to provide the public benefit. Craig's over here asking for something else now. You were good with the sidewalks. Now Craig wants us to water the whole town, so I'm not sure what to do with
You know
that.
what? You can't get if you don't ask.
That's right, exactly.
Sidewalks are expensive.
They are very
Is that
expensive.
right?
They're very expensive. And just so you know, this is almost a half a mile of roadway with sidewalks. It's a very expensive endeavor. So if I said we would look at anything, Craig, I don't know how much more we can do, but we would look at anything, and if we can figure something out, then we would work with
Rather
you.
have the safety first anyways.
Yeah. What I do like about this is the sidewalk kind of runs all along the frontage. Then through the project, you do have access through this to the Zim Smith Trail in the back. So that would be a natural trail. That's not going to be asphalt. That's not going to be blacktop or concrete. But you have the sidewalk all along Route 9 down to the bypass and then across down to Zim Smith. So for people who want to ride their bikes, walk their dogs, walk their kids with strollers, you have that opportunity. In the back, that's really for someone who's going to put on their sneakers and kind of, run through the trails. So two different opportunities for public recreation.
So it sounds like,
I think we should have more discussion, or I don't know if you do workshops or whatever, but it's not going to live or die right here, but Craig will ask for a fountain one day soon because it's got water in it.
I think probably what will happen, if you want to massage it a little bit, then we'll schedule a workshop.
Okay.
Rather than a town board presentation.
That'd be
and
great.
Get maybe some
There's a
more.
little bit more easier dialogue and scribbling
Right.
and doing it up here at the dais, and better off down
Would
there.
love to do that. I mean, I think that's a great way to sit down and just kind of get into the meat of the project.
So
and
it
have a-
sounds like, am I right? This
I
board is
support a
saying,
workshop.
yeah,
Generally like the
baby
project.
steps forward.
Okay. Anything else that we should be wary of as we kind of start to go through this and look at what we might change? No? Good? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that will actually start our meeting with a salute to the flag and a silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on our agenda is we had a public hearing last week, and we left it open for written comment. We had a public hearing on the Malta Water District Number 1. Left it open for written comment and emailed comment. We did get some more correspondence. We received correspondence from Julie LaFountain at Stockbridge, William Henderson on Springfield, Marcia Whalen, who owns property on Route 9, Mark Hammond, who owns property on Hearn Road, Neil Kramer on Meadow Shore Colony, and David Rosenberg in Copper Ridge. All of those correspondences are in the official record from the public hearing, and with that, I will close the public hearing at 7:10, 7:15. That clock's slow. We were going to wait till later in the meeting, Catherine, for,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to close the public hearing, then you were sort of in the,
I'll go sit
but
back
we
down.
can,
I'll leave. I'll go sit in the
All right.
back.
I think the rest will go quick.
Okay, thank you.
Don't give me that look. We have to accept the minutes from the town clerk from the 3-4 town board meeting and the 3/18 public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
So-
All All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then we have comments from town residents.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, Kate Hofer, Miller Road resident. It's been a few months since I've been able to attend a meeting. We met with our new supervisor and new councilwoman Connor at the beginning of the month. And so I was just here to see if there was any sort of update. It's been more than a year now since the request was sent to New York State to lower the speed limit on Miller Road. So just wondering if there's any update.
I did send a synopsis of our meeting to the town board last week at some point. And I am planning on putting a discussion item on our agenda for the next agenda meeting at the end of April. So
Okay.
it's,
Haven't heard from the state.
The Department of
Nothing from the state.
Transportation has not gotten back.
I think Jen actually reached out to them
Okay.
and no, nothing. But I think that in our conversation, we came up with some ideas that I think we should at least talk about and explore.
Yeah, I agree. I think we had a great discussion. I just, would express a little disappointment in that that was at the beginning of March, and now we're going to have the next conversation at the end of April. So 2 months have now gone by. We'll be right in warm weather. And, every time people go for exercise, walk their dog, get their mail, they're taking their life in their hands. So just, another few months going by. So thank you.
Cynthia, you and I discussed about maybe possibly having dedicated school bus stops there where we can then have a crosswalk.
Yeah, all of that was kind of in the discussion that I think we need to discuss in more detail. There were several items that were in the synopsis I sent.
I'm reading
If anybody read it.
It's right here.
Yeah,
When is that happening?
at our agenda meeting in April.
Okay, so we're going to be talking publicly
Yes.
on our options.
Yes.
Thank you.
Today, every house on Miller Road has their own bus stop because it's so dangerous. So the house directly across the road from us, they have their own stop, and then the bus goes a few feet and picks up my son. So they all have their own bus stop today, just for your information. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Lieberman. I'm from Luther Forest, and I have something I'm going to read today. When I look out my window this morning and saw the beautiful pine trees covered with snow glistening in the sun, I was filled with an overwhelming feeling of joy and appreciation, and that all was well with my world. Then I recalled the devastation of the forest a stone's throw away from my home. Town council members, I must say that I am heartbroken to see the devastation of Luther Forest on Dunning Street. Words cannot express the loss I feel at the clear cutting of the forest. The neighbors in the log cabin and the blue house on Dunning Street must be shocked at the devastation at the doorsteps. The neighbors on Mayapple Way in the Fox Wonder West community expressed being heartsick seeing their forested backyards destroyed. The sign at the entrance of the community to live in a forest was taken down in an unceremonious event that frames the end of a 10 million tree forest planted by Thomas C. Luther about a century ago. In this case, the town council had the ability to approve the project or stop it. You chose to approve it knowing full well that the residents of the town, residents of Fox Wonder West, the two homes surrounded by this clear cutting of the forest, and homes on Mayapple Way would be harmed. Their loss of a sound barrier, loss of trees and wildlife, the tranquility and peace provided by the green space have harmed the quality of their lives. The devastation of this forested land will create more pollution, fewer trees to absorb carbon monoxide, less oxygen, less forested homes for local animals that live in our forests, and more car traffic, less safe walkways on Dunning Street, and the loss of our beautiful green space, and the end of Thomas C. Luther's legacy. On February 26, 2024, at the town board meeting, which I attended, on the agenda was a public hearing to license agreement Dunning Place. It stated a development that is being planned for construction on Dunning Street has a proposed road on town-owned land. The proposed road has been on the town maps since 2013, and the developer needs a licensed agreement with the town in order to construct the road and use the town-owned parcel to access the development. Once the road is constructed to town standard, it will be dedicated back to the town. There was no public comment, and the hearing was closed at 6:03 p.m. The changes in the current membership of the Malta Town Council was in part due to the failure of its members to fulfill the promise stated in their comprehensive town plan to preserve green and forested spaces in the town through intelligent development. Development of new neighborhoods in Malta is important, but it doesn't require clear cutting of forested areas. Planned development, as in the Foxwander developments, where 100-year-old trees have not been clear cut, is an example of an aesthetic pleasing neighborhood. Actions speak louder than words, and the responsibility of this council to preserve green spaces has not been kept. Your actions and inactions are responsible for the present devastation of Luther Forest. In the article in the Times-Union, Wendy Liberatore on March 21st, 2024, Cynthia Young explained that there's not much the town can do to stop the development. The area of the subdivision is in the downtown corridor, and the project fits its 2013 form-based code. Therefore, the planning board only played an advisory role in the approvals. The town board only approved maintenance of a road that will run from the project to the CVS parking lot. Other than two items, the town is leaving its fingerprint clear of the project. The town board of Malta had to approve the project for it to go forward. The fact that the town owned a portion of one of the two connecting roads required for the project to move forward, and for the form-based code requirements for development in the downtown corridor are both reasons the town board could have decided not to approve the project. The Town of Malta Downtown Form-Based Code, written in 2012 and readopted in 2021, requires a full environmental assessment. Section A, number 14, asks, does the present site include a scenic view known to be important to the community? Section C, 12, number 12 asks, would the proposed action generate traffic significantly above the present levels? If yes, is the existing road network adequate to handle additional traffic? On the section concerning the impact on plants and animals, number 9 asks, will the proposed action substantially affect non-threatened or non-endangered species? Will the proposed action substantially interfere with any resident wildlife species? Number 11 asks, will proposed action affect the aesthetic resources? Will proposed land use visible to users reduce their enjoyment of aesthetic qualities of the resource? And lastly, number 20 asks, is there likely to be public controversy related to the potential adverse environmental impact. Any of all of these could have been considered reasons to stop this project. Moving forward, I ask the Town of Malta elected board members to consider protecting forested and green spaces of our community as dictated in the master plan. The beauty that attracts all of us to live here. Once it is gone, it will be forever change the community we live in. There is a plan to clear cut 5 acres of forested land to build a police barracks. This land is at the entrance to the development of Fox Wanda West. It crosses over Dunning Street and is next to a school bus stop and will take land in Fox Wanda West under eminent domain to create a second entrance and exit. The land was given by Malta Town Board to the state for the sale of $1 for the purpose of building a state police barracks. The state police have been offered other sites in Malta. I ask the Town Board to take an assertive role in urging the state police to seek an alternate location. The opportunity is here now for the Town Board to respond with overwhelming desire of the community with over 500 signatures to support the constituents who voted you into office. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Lieberman.
I'm Matt McLaughlin, just to reiterate, my stand again is against the state police barracks going into that 4-acre lot. I stated that in January. Last year, I met with the state police to see if there is another area of opportunity. I support not having a barracks there. I want the barracks in Malta. I'm a retired state trooper. I know how important it is to have public safety and have the barracks here. A brainstorming idea may be if we decide to move forward with the New York Development Group as a public benefit, maybe they build or purchase some land further down Route 9, possibly where the old My Way Cafe was, and have that dedicated to the state, and then meet with our higher politicians to have the barracks built there. That would give great access to the state police, where they have the Round Lake bypass, Route 9, and they can easily go down 67 to Stillwater, which covers that patrol area.
Thank you for your support.
You're welcome.
Any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Joan Salvi, and I live on Mayapple Way. I don't know what Malta looked like before moving here in late 2019. I remember clearly my first time driving down Route 9 on our way to meet our realtor to view a house on Mayapple Way. We came into town. As we came into town, I cringed at the monstrosity that is Ellsworth Commons. I was expecting a walkable town with character. Well, the gazebo is nice, if poorly placed, I thought. We continued round the traffic circle and started down Dunning Street. And it was like we entered another world. To live in a forest, the sign said. Then we turned down Partridge Drum and quickly forgot the negative first impression. It only took a minute's-long dash through the house for sale to know we needn't look any further. And a view of the forest in our backyard to know we were home. I lived for 25 years on the side of a mountain in a small town, small hamlet actually, in the Catskills, surrounded by forests protected by the DEP. Then, after that, I moved into the heart of Saratoga Springs. I liked the town, but I did miss my forest. Luther Forest is the perfect marriage of convenience to the action and green serenity. Why not market Malta that way? There's ample space to build intelligently, and communities using the original Luther Forest as a model and a guide. This is more pertinent now that we hear the presentation prior for that project that's going to include all of the apartments and townhomes and houses. I think that I'm really glad to hear that the council is considering how that's going to impact life in Malta and the feel of the community. And so once again, I ask that intelligent planning be considered and let the town dictate how development happens. In Luther Forest, the original development, the existing mature trees on lots remained, and houses were constructed within the footprint that was existing between those trees. And also, there were swaths of forest with trails that were allowed to be dispersed amongst all of the other homes. It really is a model community. And I know that there are other lands that are being developed that aren't forested, so that doesn't apply. But right now, I'm talking about preserving Luther Forest. When Luther Forest sells off more land, as the land becomes unprofitable through harvesting the trees, then I think we need to really have this in mind to retain some of the beauty and set regulations for the developers that this is what they are allowed to do, how many trees they must leave. You can do this. You must do this. It's not a matter of opposing development, but rather controlling it for the common good of all. What is happening now on Dunning is very, very disturbing, and that can't be undone. My heart breaks for the homes that back up to the devastated area. They too fell in love with the forest in their backyard. It peacefully protected them from the sights and sounds of increasing traffic on Dunning Street. Their quality of life has been greatly diminished. This could have been done differently. It should have been done differently. In my opinion, it would be a compassionate move for the town, at the very least, to arrange for a strong privacy fence to be constructed at their property lines, to protect them from the inevitable, to protect them from when the inevitable happens, and the few root-disturbed trees come crashing down. We know that that's a danger. Root systems are interconnected. When you clear cut and leave some trees, those trees' roots are weakened and they will fall. Eventually they will fall. And I know that there are other people on Mayapple that were concerned about this when their lots behind them were clear cut for Ellsworth Commons, and there's been a problem with trees that have fallen. In keeping with what I've just said, the barracks must be relocated to preserve what remains. We need and request action and support from our elected officials. Time is running out. Please make the barracks relocation a priority, and soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Nancy D'Onofrio, Wineberry Lane. Notwithstanding, Joan and Larry covered most of everything that I was going to dialogue, but the corner of Partridge Drum and Dunning Street must be maintained to maintain what is called Luther Forest. And if that is taken away from us, that is going to say we do no longer live in Luther Forest or the forest. And I know that it affects everybody, not just this small group. When you drive down and see where Dunning Place is done, if we take that corner out, we're going to have a problem with our privacy and the aesthetics of the town. And I've done a lot of legwork. I've talked to several people, There's a lot of land. There's land. There's places. We just have to work together to find those people to offer that land to the state in conjunction with getting that piece of land preserved and back to the hands of Luther Forest homeowners. I don't know what it's going to take. And the next step is what we need to also talk about is replacing a sign that was given to the Mackeys because it was this historical sign of theirs. Where would we put that sign? If the barracks were not put there, would we be able to have an easement placed to put the sign? And where a sign could be placed if that barracks land was preserved. So that's another question that we need to negotiate into the possibility of not putting the barracks there. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nancy.
Do we know, what year was that development approved that's going up there right now? Do we know?
I don't, 2022.
Okay. Kathy Eitzman, Malta Seniors. We're having an event on April 1st. It's no April Fools. We're having Citizen Emergency Preparedness. New York State National Guard are going to come out and they're going to do an emergency preparedness presentation at 11:15. You do need to pre-register and you can do that online under prepare.ny.gov. I believe the flyer is also at the community center and online with the Malta Seniors. At the end of that presentation, you will get a go bag. Then in case of emergency, you are ready. So that is on April 1st. And with a different hat on, the development that they were talking about on Route 9 with the sidewalks, first off, I'm so excited about the sidewalks. There's so many people walking on Route 9. It's really dangerous. And if you want to see more single families available in Malta, build some apartments seniors can afford because they can't afford to maintain their homes. They're paying the taxes and that sometimes, but maintenance they're not able to do. So they do need some affordable housing, attainable housing.
Attainable.
And when you're talking about 1,000 to 1,200 square foot home with a lot around 300,000, you can't even buy in Luther Forest that home. And Luther Forest density was like great because it was one of the few times, I know we were here when it was built, it was attainable. And those people have been able to purchase those homes, and we have not had that same density available to citizens since then. So I would like to see some attainable housing for all of our seniors and young folks. And I have just a quick question. Does the town of Malta still own the land that the barracks is proposed for?
No.
That has been sold. So it's New
Yes.
York State land
New York
now?
State owns it.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else?
Don't forget to vote. Early voting is now until Saturday, and it's available right here in Malta at the Highway Garage, so don't forget to vote.
Hi, Linda Noble, Luther Forest. I wanted to thank the Highway Department for all the clean roads that we got over the weekend. I think it was great. I mean, you've been out there for hours and hours cleaning, I heard you. So that was great.
A lot of overtime, Linda.
Well, that's good too, isn't it? Okay, I just want to make some comments about the presentation they had here. When I looked at it online, it looked like the houses that were individual houses were going to be 0.11117 acres, which that to me is a zero lot line. So there's not much around those houses. It kind of reminds me of places that they build in Florida, where you can't even get a
Are you saying
0.117? Did I read it wrong?
maybe 3 acres, 20 units?
You might not even get a lawnmower in between. The other thing is, what percent green space? When I looked at it up here, the green space looked awful sparse. And if there's going to be children there and everything else, there's got to be someplace, parks or something, for them to play in. And the space that was between there and Malta Gardens didn't look very wide either. It didn't look like it was more than a couple of trees. I had to ask the question about the impact to the wetlands. There were wetlands that were mentioned that are behind where they're doing the construction. You don't want to destroy those either. And then I had the same question. I think he answered it. It'd be 2 floors of apartments. And I was wondering what kind of facade they're going to put on that building, or is it going to look like a box down here? And also the cost of the homes. Cost of the homes, I can't see anything costing less than $300,000 anyway, just by what he said things cost. And apartments too. So anyway, the apartments, with so many apartments, I just think it's going to take away a lot of green space, and it's probably going to affect the wetlands that are behind it. That's my point.
Thank you, Linda.
My notes tell me that was 43 acres being developed out of 127, and then they weren't venturing into the land conservation area. But again, this will be all discussed, so it's less than half.
Anybody else? Comments from town board and department heads. I just myself have a couple of things. First of all, when we decided to use the old highway garage for early voting, Barb Connor suggested that it was kind of shabby in there. So I want to commend our maintenance staff who gave it a good thorough cleaning and a fresh coat of paint and new flooring, and it looks quite spiffed up, so I think we were able to put our best foot forward. One other thing that, I'll save that for the Saratoga Water Services. This is something to discuss with my colleagues up here. Kristen Gottman, our Director of Parks and Rec, and our Code Enforcement Officer and our Head of Maintenance went over to Pellegrino's one day last week to look at the condition. The Pellegrino's has not signed the lease yet because there's a clause in it that says that we don't want to spend more than $10,000 in maintenance in the building. The building needs a new roof. They told us it needs a roof pretty quickly. There's other significant stuff, the roof and the parking lot of repairs that they felt needed to be done sooner rather than later. We did get an inquiry from someone about possibly selling it. For anybody that doesn't know, the town of Malta owns the building that Pellegrino's is in. It's kind of, it was bought basically for possibly an expansion of the community center, which obviously never happened. So we leased that to Pellegrino's. We got an inquiry about someone that was interested in possibly at least talking to us about buying the building. Nothing official, nothing, no terms. So I guess what I want to ask my colleagues here on the board is, what's our long-term goal? Those 2 repairs alone are going to cost more than the $10,000 that's in the contract. We can either, Pellegrino's is unwilling to sign the contract with that clause because of the repairs that need to be done on the building.
I'm not in favor of being landlords to commercial businesses.
Does Pellegrino's want to stay there, or do they eventually want to move?
No, they want to stay there. And so keep that in mind too. We have a successful small business in town that we don't, I personally don't want to disrupt that. He wants to stay there for at least 5 years.
Could we add to a lease to buy arrangement with Pellegrino?
We didn't discuss that with him. At one point, they were interested.
Yeah, just for historical reference, the whole reason we leased it for him was he was intending to buy it. And then COVID and other matters, financing, I believe, related to that, didn't allow that to happen. So now the lease is up, and the prior town board considered it and said, look, we didn't at that time want to be in the business of renting property. We intended to sell that property, and that hasn't been able to, although I think there's a general like of the business, and We did negotiate a change to the contract that said, look, we want you to stay, but, you know, we don't have a long-term lease. We don't want to be in that long-term leasing business. So we're not willing to spend a lot of money on that. And I guess that's where we're at now.
So he hasn't been approached again about a lease to buy?
Well, he has been approached for many years about the ability to buy the property and has indicated that he can't. So a lease to buy is really a non-starter at this point.
Well, I guess what I'm suggesting is it's 2024. We know for sure that he does not want a lease to buy option.
I negotiated the contract for months and months with he and his attorney, and he regularly indicated that he had no intention of buying the property.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. Month after month, we hear about new projects, more housing, apartments. Is there not a possibility at some point the town would want to expand the community center or use that lot for some other municipal building? If we own it
Like a state police
now,
barracks?
why, we could, is there, wouldn't it be much more expensive to buy another piece of property should at some point municipal need arise than just keeping what we already own?
Well, I guess, I mean, that's what I'm asking. If we're going to keep the property, we need to invest some money in it because it needs repair. So that's the opinion that I want from my board is do we make the investment or?
Well, the last presentation we got, at least I got sticker shock when they were gonna renovate what we're gonna do with the courthouse, this building, or build a new building, or transform the garage area, well, in the tune of about $35 million. So I'm all for having a bigger, community center. It's, I'm sure a referendum for the town would have to get involved, and if they want to spend that kind of money to increase that footprint. It wouldn't just be up to this board.
If we're going to hold it, we got to fix it. I mean, I've heard some pretty bad stories about the water coming in from the outside. The town board, as I recall, had an estimate on the value of the property by our last administration here, if not before.
It's assessed for $445,000.
And I believe that we couldn't get a firm offer at that price, therefore we decided to hold it. If we hold it, we better fix it. So it's not raining on the inside. If not, find somebody else that'll run it, or sell it. But I'm not going to sell it for under what we actually bought it for.
Well, we don't have to make this decision tonight.
No.
Ponder this for the week, and maybe we can talk about it again. We're getting kind of lengthy here. Any other town board members have any?
When's the lease up?
The lease
It's
has
month
not
to
been
month.
signed.
It's month to month.
Month to month now, right now.
And he's been paying regularly. There's been no problems with that.
Right. So,
I just want to recognize our 2 New York National Guard members who died on March 8th down in Texas on a deployment to help secure our border. John Gracia and Casey Frankowski. They were the Lakota helicopter pilots who perished alongside of a Border Patrol agent on March 8th. John Gracia was a New York State Trooper. Casey's funeral was on Friday, and John's is Tuesday, and he's going to be buried up at the National Cemetery in Saratoga.
thank you, Matt.
I had the privilege of serving with John Gracia in Kuwait when I was there in 2014 in my unit.
Anybody else? I think we're gonna, the only other discussion that I think might be a little lengthy will be the water district, so I think we're going to move the conversation about the water district up, so poor Catherine can stay awake. So I'm taking item number 2 on discussion items and moving it. The rest is all going to go quick.
I guess that was a little premature. You know, water districts are very exciting to people like me. So with the public hearing closed, I did want to confirm with the board some potential changes to the water district map that was presented last week. The map that the board members have in front of them really only includes potentially adding 4 parcels for discussion. The first 3 I don't think are of any issue. They were 3 properties on Route 9 just north of Bayberry that 2 of the 3 are owned by Malta Fire Department. They asked to be in, and then one gentleman who owned a vacant property was here and asked for his property to be in.
I don't think that's quite true. The fire company owns 1, then there's a small parcel that's owned by somebody else, and then the other parcel's
Okay.
owned by Murphy's. But yes, those 3 properties.
All right, so the board concurs that those will go in the final. And the last one was the fire department property at 5 Hearn Road. They did ask that that property be added. That property is not one of the properties that is currently served by the service area by Saratoga Water Services. The Saratoga Water Services service area goes to 10 Hearn Road, which is just south of there, just for reference. So I didn't
I think
know.
it's actually 15 Hearn Road, 12 Hearn Road.
Yep. Yeah, that's been one that's 10/12, 10/12.
Yeah, it's 12. 10 some other guy's house. Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of adding that, the fire company. And Bill Ryan said that adding that would not trigger another public hearing. And so how about,
Do they not have efficient amount of water?
they do
at
not
Malta?
have water, right?
Where do they currently get their water from?
I think
would
they
be
draw it
from
out of
a-
the lake.
When they turn on the faucet, where's the water coming from?
Well, they have a well.
Well, okay. So that's a concern of mine, that the fire department doesn't have water. Now, the main line ends right now at Callahan Boulevard. Does Malta Ridge need that water soon? Like, how much, if we would be responsible to supply that main line going up Route 9?
Yeah, no one expects us to supply that. So they'll get closer with Sage Estates. But 12 Hearn Road is part of the property that Saratoga Water Services is contractually obligated to provide water to. And in our contract, we agreed to service those. So they just wanted us to put it in there. So if and when water comes up there,
Is there a proposal for developing 12 Hearn Road? Is there anything in discussion?
no. But again, it was a parcel that we were contractually obligated to add.
Yeah, I read the contract today. There was actually one paragraph. It says, whereas Saratoga Water Services, the applicant, that was Saratoga Malta LLC, says and agrees that Saratoga Water Services is not under any obligation of law nor in any other manner required to provide water service to the plot or tract of land described above, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I was wondering, I read this. Are we actually obligated to service 12 Hearn Road should it ever get developed?
Right, well, we aren't, but he was. I mean, at this point, yeah, Saratoga Water Services. Alec was pretty adamant that that is a parcel that he has all the approvals that he needs, and he was contractually obligated to.
But they don't have any town approvals on that yet, right?
No, there's no project.
I would like to make sure that our fire departments do have water, yes.
I think the fire,
just
I'm
concerned on
agreeing.
How are we going to pay for the main line getting up there?
The other part that I want to talk about tonight, as long as everybody's fine with with what Catherine suggested, is Stockbridge. So that's a little cul-de-sac, they're condominiums. They are included in the district now. There's no contract that says that Saratoga Water Services has to provide water to them. There's no development that's likely to extend water to them. And I don't object to them being in the district, but what I'm concerned about is that they understand that if they are in the district, they will pay the debt service, and there's no promise of them getting water anytime
Correct,
soon.
unless they so decide as an association or a neighborhood. I'm not quite sure how the condos are, together legally to extend a water main up their road to serve their properties.
But here's my question, Catherine. If they're in the proposed district and there's debt incurred to run the water on those streets, is that debt taken on by the entire district?
No, because there's a clause that I asked for in the map plan and report that actually specifies that any future lines in the ground, the developer or the owner has to incur and pay off that debt. And it will not be paid by this water district.
Correct.
And I'm gonna hold my feet on that.
Yep, that is in the map planner report.
Okay.
So specific to Old Chatham Court Stockbridge, that is one that there is a water line proximal to that neighborhood.
There is.
So irregardless of the town purchasing the system and creating a water district, they could connect. I don't know if they've chosen to or if they've decided not to. By putting them in the district, that would allow them to connect in the future without having to come back to the town board. And again,
Well,
you're allowed to extend the district in the future, but it would be at the privy of the town board. So the benefit to them, I'm going to give pros and cons for this neighborhood. The benefit of them being in now is that they're in the district. They wouldn't have to negotiate being put in at a later date. The con is that they have to pay debt service. They're not connected to water. And if they were to desire to connect, the condo association would have to build their own infrastructure. So I think there's some confusion with some residents that they say, hey, I want to be in the water district. That does not mean that if you're, say, half a mile from the water district, that does not mean that by being put in the water district, magically water's going to appear in front of your house. It's not the case.
Right.
So the question for the people in Old Chatham and Stockbridge is, do you want to be in the district and pay debt service and work with the town to work with your neighbors to have water extended at your cost, not the town's cost, not the district cost? Or do you want to be left out, pay no debt service, and have to decide in the future what to do? It's really where it is. And it's not a decision that is easy. But we put them in the district initially for the draft because they had expressed desire to intend to connect. How they do it is not
our concern.
The town's concern.
Biggest fear, and I think we ought to go back and talk to their lawyer because he has expressed an interest on getting hooked up. My biggest fear is that if we tell them that they're in and they're paying money into it and they're getting zero return, that the breakdown between us and them might get a little skewed and they come back after the town. I think we should sign something with them saying they want in or out, or at least convey that to their lawyer. I mean.
Well, and thank you, Craig, for saying what I was just going to say.
I've already.
Unfortunately, we're kind of in a bit of a calendar crunch now with.
Right.
Would the board support that property being removed, not being in the district? And if the neighbors so to choose to petition next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, to become a water district extension, that would just mean that they would go through this process, and it's much quicker when it's just one property, and they would be an extension, and they would then pay to connect themselves. That
Wait,
is
it's
the
just
other
one property,
option.
isn't it?
Technically, it's two tax parcels.
This is exactly why I asked to keep the district as clean as possible. But it's exactly.
I think that, Craig, honestly, this is probably the one property that isn't an easy decision. Everyone else is in the district because they're in the district. They're served or they're in the service area, and that's kind of how it is.
About how many houses again are would be in the service area that are not hooked up? Is that about 400?
That are not hooked up?
Currently,
That don't have water in front of them.
about 100.
About 100.
100.
There are a lot of people who have water lines running by their house that haven't connected. So that's really not.
I'm still firm on, I do not want anybody who doesn't turn on their faucet and receive Saratoga water to have to pay any part of the debt service.
Okay.
At least grandfathered in. If people want to sell their house to that new owner, then they would pay into the debt service.
We can't do that.
That's,
Why not?
That's kind of,
Why can't we?
as we discussed at the workshop last week, that I hate to say that's not how it works, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. Matt, and you're probably saying that's the worst answer you could ever give Catherine. So I'll give the example of Cynthia's neighborhood because she did bring it up. Some of her neighbors are not connected. There's a water line that runs by their house. They do benefit from that infrastructure being there, meaning that they get reduced property taxes for having a hydrant next to their house. That is fact. They potentially could sell their house for more by having access to public water. So while they're physically not connected, that is really how it's done in water and sewer districts. Is if your water line or sewer line runs by your house, you're part of the district because you benefit from that utility. Because at any point in time, your well goes dry. If my well went dry today and I was in the water district and had a water line in front of my house, I could theoretically make a call to the water department tomorrow and get the process to be connected. If you're not in the district, it could take 3, 4, 5 months to get added.
Then they benefit.
They benefit.
They benefit.
They benefit that they'll be able to not pay any debt service under my plan and still reap the benefits from it. Right now, they don't pay anything to Saratoga Water Services. It doesn't financially hurt them that this water line goes in front of their house. By our actions, all of a sudden, they're gonna start incurring more debt. And that's what I have a problem with. For 100 houses, I think we can spread the debt to the other residents that receive water to their faucets.
So the mechanism would be though, and I'm taking this from experience from when I did a lot of work just west of here in Ballston. And I'll say a theoretical person. Say my property was in this district and I had a water line that ran by my house, but I chose to be off my well, okay? I would get a reduction in my property taxes every year for having a hydrant near my house. I would get the benefit of being able to connect at my leisure. Why should I not pay for that infrastructure cost until I decide maybe in 5 years to connect?
Don't they already receive those benefits now, though? Don't they have that option right now to be able to hook up? And they're not paying for that privilege. And by our actions, all of a sudden now, they will be paying for that.
Okay, so if we were to take, say, 100 properties out, and mind you, many of those 100 properties are actually within the Saratoga Water Services service area, which is contractually obligated to be in this district, so we kind of can't take them out.
Right.
You would theorize to have a very gap-toothed district with a bunch of properties removed. What would be your mechanism when they choose to connect? Would you say, you've been in the town of Malta Water District for, say, 5 years, you shall pay back the last 5 years of debt
No.
service because you're benefiting from it?
The moment they hook up, then they start incurring the debt service.
But the other thing is, Matt, if you, by your standard, so all those people in my neighborhood that aren't hooked up and all those people that have a water main going in front of them and the 100 homes that were added in the district, if we take all of them out, the rest of us are gonna pay a lot more in our debt service.
Yep.
Yes, I'm part of Saratoga Water Services. I'm willing to pay more money that somebody who doesn't receive anything,
Yep.
that water.
Yeah, and I would,
So they got the infrastructure in front of their house. It's their decision to stay and not hook up.
Yes.
If they want to, that they still can. So, and as she said, they have the fire hydrants. They're also, so they are definitely benefiting from it. If we take out 100 houses, it's a little bit higher than what I'm comfortable with.
Kathy, can you
The
refresh?
fact that they got the pipe right in front of their houses, they can call a plumber tomorrow and hook up in 4 days.
Yeah, and I will say is, please don't take my statements as being rude or sarcastic. These are questions that have come up in my 20 years of experience. I will akin this to, I don't have children currently in school, therefore I shouldn't pay school taxes. It's very much a circular theoretical discussion about public services. But when you're forming special districts in New York State, whether it's water drainage, lighting, sewer, it's those who benefit pay. There's no argument that would say that someone who has a water line running by their house doesn't benefit. They do. So therefore, they should
Can you
pay.
just refresh my memory? How many, in the water district,
Mhm.
how many people are going to be serviced by this?
Just shy of 3,000
All right,
total
so-
within the
So
two
we got
towns.
100 are not hooked up, and we got 3,000 that are. And this is a private company who can sell to somebody else. And then we have no control of what that price is going to be. Is that correct?
I would say yes, but
There you go.
It's a
So-
private company that if we don't buy it, will sell to
We
someone.
are subject to, yes, somebody else, and we are, my memory serves me correctly, we are distinguished to be in a low water district cost area,
you're
right?
considered extremely low
I'd
to
like
water.
to keep it that way, so the majority of the residents will be getting the benefit, versus the 100 people that still have the option and get the benefit versus the 3,000.
Correct. And one thing to bring up too, and again, I'm not an attorney, I did not read the contract explicitly, I read the sections that apply to the engineering side. The contract with Saratoga Water Services states that all properties within his service area shall be included in the Town of Malta Water District. I would think that not only does he mean properties like 12 Hearn Road or down to the Brown Lake Bypass, he also means properties that have just chosen not to connect with the water line runs by their house. So even though I understand and respect Matt's discussion, because this comes up on nearly every single district formation I've ever worked with, because it is a very prudent discussion. It basically applies to who pays for what if you own property in the state of New York, is I would circle back to the contract, that I do not believe we are contractually allowed to do what Matt is suggesting, regardless of if his suggestion has merit or grounds. It does make sense, but it's something that we're really bound by the contract that was signed.
So another example though is, Matt, our neighborhood also has sewer, and I am not hooked up to the sewer, but I'm part of the sewer district, so I pay the tax for the sewer district, but we have a septic tank. It's just the way utilities work.
Isn't that bound by law?
The
Also?
sewer suggestion that Cynthia has?
What's that?
Are you meaning Cynthia's?
No, I meant
Oh.
that if it is in front of the house, that you are part of the district.
I personally never seen a case in my 20 years where a property was excluded from a district and a utility ran by their house, regardless if they chose to connect or not. It is what it is.
Okay.
But it's good questions, because people are going to ask this in the public meetings.
Right.
Because no one wants to pay more money. They don't. No one does.
And I'm still for purchasing the water, Saratoga Water Services.
And just for the
Don't buy it, somebody else is gonna buy it.
Yes.
At some point.
The
And
benefits do outweigh the possible negative impact.
Yep. No, and I think it's great that you're bringing up these questions, because I guarantee residents will bring it up, whether it's at, public information sessions or to board members. And just also for the board, the revisions would also correct about some of the properties in Stillwater that frankly I just didn't get right. So, but all in all, the final map plan and report that will be issued will have these 4 properties in Town of Malta added. It will adjust the cost per user numbers, probably not enough for you to notice.
Right.
And that will be the final one that's submitted for the meeting next Monday.
Okay, so do we all agree with the changes, the proposed changes, adding the 3 properties and the firehouse?
Do we want to keep in or keep out Old Chatham Court?
Yes.
What are we gonna do on that? I would highly advise at least
Leaving them in?
talk to his
No,
lawyer
that's next week.
anyways, and make sure it's clear that, they can't assume the fact that we're gonna pay for their infrastructure if they stay in. But if they stay in, they don't need a HAP plan extensively anyways, but they definitely, it's gotta be clear that that debt is gonna be served by themselves, not through everybody else.
I guess at this point, I'm saying leave them in.
There's gotta be no question about that.
Board members, wasn't their attorney present at the public hearing?
Yes.
And didn't he
Last week.
And
indicate
yes.
that they wanted to be in?
Wanted to be in.
The minutes may reflect it, I'm not certain, but.
And residents that I've spoken to there want to be in, and I've made it really clear that there's no plan for them to actually get water anytime soon. We can look for grants, but
And then the second question, just for clarity's sake, so what is the cost again for the debt service per typical home is 200
About
and?
$240 for a
Right,
home
and
assessed at $360,000.
And I believe these houses were somewhere between 80 and 100.
80 and 120.
Yeah, so.
Oh, they are assessed much lower.
They're
Right.
assessed
So-
much lower.
Interesting,
So you're
okay.
looking at somewhere between $50 and $100.
Okay.
And not to say that that can't be a reason for them not to be in there, but just so the board knows the dollar cost that, and to Matt's concern, I don't think we're trying to stick it to them in any significant way of that's a yearly cost.
Right.
Um,
That's just for this
And arguably,
neighborhood.
arguably, like, as pointed out by Catherine, their property is worth more by being in the district. They, in addition to having potential reduction in insurance because of fire hydrants, there's a value to it. And based upon if their attorneys indicated they want to be in it, Cynthia's spoken with them. It's been part of it the whole time. This isn't a surprise. It was discussed at the public hearing. I just wanted to make the board
Yeah.
aware of those few facts.
Okay, I
And
think,
just one more thing to bring up with the PUD presentation by New York Development Group. Currently, the rear parcel that they're planning on developing, about 25% of it is not within the proposed water district.
oh, that's interesting.
So that can be corrected tonight, or that would be something that they would have to come back in the future to seek an extension.
Oh, I don't know that I'm prepared to make that decision tonight.
It was never included, so that would just be a reminder for them when they proceed with a PUD, as would be any other parcel that is not within the water district, that there will be a mechanism. Again, this would be, if it gets voted in July to be formed, that there will always be a mechanism for a property owner to petition the town board. So right now, it's not in the water district. I'm not-
Some of it is, but
The
the
front
back
portion.
part isn't, right?
Again, I'm not saying yes or
Right.
no tonight. I just wanted to mention that to you since they were before the board.
And no, I'm not prepared to add that tonight.
Nope.
That's for sure. One more thing that I just want to mention while we're on this Saratoga Water Services thing, unrelated to the district. I met with Alec. He has, I think I sent an email to this effect to everybody. They have installed radio control meters. Julia's looking at me. In most of the system, the only neighborhood that they have not installed them in is High Point. He was asking that we give him permission to actually do that over the course of the next couple of months while we're not, stop shaking your head at me, Julia. While we're not, before we purchase it, the cost, they would provide the labor themselves while they still own it, but he would like to be reimbursed for the cost of the meters themselves, which is about $300 a meter. I think it makes sense. He says that it's something that we would want to do fairly quickly. Do you agree with that?
I do know that $300 per meter is substantially lower than when the town of Ballston did swap outs in 2019.
And like I say, he's going to do it at his expense of the labor. I mean, if we do it, we're going to be.
It would be more of a question of, is this a capital improvement or maintenance item that you desire to do now, or you desire to wait within 2 to 5 years? I think that's more of a question for Julia. But I do want to let you know that is not, that's a good price.
Don't pay
Which she
attention.
doesn't want to hear.
Pay
but-
no attention to that. Oh, she's coming up.
I didn't catch the beginning of that. What are we doing?
The meters, so the whole system has radio meters so that they don't, they have to physically actually read the meter. It's all done electronically.
You don't have to go into the
Drive
building
down
to
the
read the meter. You drive
Right.
down the street and
He-
it picks up the meter reading.
He wants to, in the interim here, before we purchase the system, he would like to replace the meters in that last neighborhood so that we don't have to do it at a cost of
It
$300.
costs us nothing, right?
And we'll buy the actual hardware and he'll.
Right,
provide-
well, we won't buy it, we'll reimburse him
Mm.
for the cost of the meters.
When this was first brought up, the estimation of the cost was significantly higher than what it sounds like you've kind of discussed a little bit further at $300 per meter. From what I was familiar with at a previous position I held, $300 for a meter, especially a radio read meter, which I'm figuring or assuming you're suggesting,
Right.
is a very decent price. You know, it's going to come down to exactly how much it will cost the town, and when the town is expected to reimburse him upon district formation and bond, in receiving the bond. So.
We don't actually have an agreement yet, he was gonna have his lawyer work on it. I was gonna see if we had general consent here before he had his lawyer draw up a.
I like to see whatever we're talking about in writing so I can understand and read it instead of conceptually talking about what I don't know, which is a lot.
So how many houses up in?
I don't know.
Point about.
I don't know.
I'm just thinking about this.
Yeah,
That's-
it's ultimately going to come down to exactly what the total cost is going to be and when we're expected to pay it back. Just because that first year we want to keep the cost within the
Possible.
first year cost in the MAP planner report. So.
Thank you, Julia. Well, I'll try to get something more in writing than what I forwarded to you, some.
Sure, so if the board's in agreement with the changes that I proposed tonight, I will get a final map planner report to you by the end of the day Friday for discussion on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we just have an appendix up front with the changes besides reading that whole 85 pages again for the map plan of what we just discussed?
Well, we're just adding some parcels.
Okay.
Shouldn't make any difference other than,
So that's going to be in writing, right?
yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be an amended map planning report.
But it'll be the whole thing. I know you like the length of it, Al.
Well, we can
It
have
was
it.
quite a long PDF.
I know, I understand it's got to be in the full document, but instead of me hunting on page 67 for it, us people that need up front. Anyhow, regardless, disregard.
I'll do a cover letter that
Thank
explains
you.
the changes for you.
Thank you, Catherine.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now we're going back to tonight's action items. I think everybody knows that there's been some issues with Old Post Road, and there are repairs that need to be done. So we have been advised by our engineering firm that those repairs pose an immediate danger to travelers on Old Post Road. So this resolution declares the repairs on Old Post Road as an emergency, so that we can get them done quicker.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next action for tonight is it, of course, will require additional engineering. So it's to approve a supplemental proposal for engineering for all those Old Post Road repairs.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Don't be packing up so quick, there's a lot of agenda left. Oh, I see. So next week, these are items to talk about for next week. The highway maintenance enters into an emergency contract, so if we have emergencies that need to be done, we don't have to go out to bid. He submitted requests for proposals. You only got the one back, right, Roger?
Yep, only one.
So we're going to award that bid next week to the one.
The contractor for probably 3-4 years.
Yep. The contract expires on April 1st, so,
It's an emergency contract to be on the scope of the highway.
yeah. We did the next one. Also, next week, what we will do is we have to make a secret determination. Secret is the State Environmental Quality Review Act, about whether or not us purchasing the Maltaville Saratoga Water Services has any detrimental environmental effects. So we will be acting on that. And then hopefully we will approve the formation of Malta Water District Number 1, subject to a mandatory referendum. And we will schedule a referendum next week for the public to vote on whether or not we should purchase the Saratoga Water Services. Next thing is a discussion on East Line Romp and Play. East Line Romp and Play is the dog park that the town owns. It has been managed by a not-for-profit since its inception, by contract, sort of like the MAA, but on a smaller scale. Their volunteerism has diminished significantly. There really isn't anybody in charge anymore, and most of the work to maintain it and collect the fees and all of that is already done in-house. Jen collects the fees and just turns them over to Romp and Play. I am kind of proposing that we dissolve or that we cancel our contract with Romp and Play and take the whole thing in-house. Jen and a couple of other staff members, including Kristen, are going to look at another dog park, see if there's improvements we can make, see how they manage theirs. As it is now, our maintenance crew pretty much maintains it. Like I say, she collects the money. It's sort of, they take the money and they pay, you'll see on their year-end report, they pay some stuff out of it. We actually have a savings because we don't need additional insurance, and so I'm, like I say, I'm proposing that
Isn't that Romp and Play a 501c3?
they are. They are.
C3?
So they would have to dissolve their 501c3, and we can probably help them with that because there doesn't seem to be anybody.
Well, they don't have to dissolve their
They don't?
501, they could do something else with it. The problem that I think the board just needs to be aware of, this has been an ongoing discussion, we've had other ones. Basically, they've abandoned the park.
Right.
There's no other way to say it. I don't even think they have a board. If there is one, they're not telling us who it is. The woman who's been helpful to provide that, I don't think has an official capacity to even
Right.
continue to serve. So in my view and where we're at, unless they were to get us something very quickly to show that there is an active board who's actively managing this, we have an obligation to take it over. It's not even like we can enter into an agreement right now.
But right, because there's
not a-
nobody to agree with.
So I would think the resolution would be to establish, this isn't new, we've been trying to get updates from them, financials, we finally got something. And clarification as to who is, the board of that entity, what the status of it is, and it's just gone nowhere. So I think it's time for board to take action. We had hoped it would be an agreement, basically that they don't want to do it any longer because they're not doing it. But I don't have that agreement for the board to consider because there's no official person to even speak to. So I think the resolution would be to establish that they've abandoned or otherwise breached their agreement, and that now the board is taking action to, it's still park-owned land, to take over the maintenance of the park and the obligations, and then we're going to evaluate, as Cynthia has indicated, through Parks and Rec and others to see, well, where do we go with it from there?
Any opinion from the board, or do we move forward with that? Okay, next is the discussion about the drainage district for Dunning Place. As we talked before, well, basically where we're at right now is, well, let me just explain what this means with the Dunning, the Dunning Place. The stormwater management system that is proposed to be part of this development is rather complicated. It's not just a pond. It's a system that will require ongoing maintenance, annual maintenance and, maintenance over time. And it can be maintained one of two ways. The one way is the development could establish an HOA, and then the assumption would be that the HOA would take care of the stormwater management system. Typically, what happens though is they collect money and they plant flowers and make improvements, and then when the time comes to actually maintain that stormwater management system, they don't have the money to do it, and then it fails, and it ends up being the responsibility of the town to repair it. So what we're proposing here is that this district, that this development establish a drainage district. It will be the first of its kind in Malta, but what will happen then is, much like the water district, the residents of this district will pay a tax to the town to cover those costs and expenses of maintaining that district, that system over time. So it would be the responsibility of the highway department, but we'll have money in the bank to actually do that maintenance and possible repairs and upkeep. So we have gotten a map plan and report prepared by the developer's engineer. It's a preliminary report. Our engineers have reviewed it. They had some comments, mostly about whether or not the costs are adequate, and some language that they wanted changed. I see Mr. Lansing left, so we're not there yet. We expect a petition to be filed to ask us to establish this district. Right now, there's only one owner because they haven't built any houses. And then once that is done, we'll set a public hearing, and people can comment as to whether or not we should establish this district, and then we'll move forward. There's no action tonight. I just wanted to let you know that we received the map plan and report, and they are moving forward with that.
Is that going to be similar to the water, where only the residents that are utilizing that would
Yes.
be paying?
Yes,
Nobody else?
only the 24 homes that are built in there will be paying the tax.
And they'll all be hooked up.
Well, yeah, because it's a drainage district, so.
Is the town ready to service that drainage district?
Why, yes.
It was pretty extensive.
Yes, they are, aren't they, Roger? The quality of the expertise
wanted
of
to
the
see,
highway
Roger.
department.
Roger, I don't think it's built yet. I mean, Craig, it's not built yet.
If I could just comment on that.
Private land, but now the town's accepting to take it over, which that's what
Yeah,
the DEC wants, so.
Yeah, and we won't actually own the land. We'll just maintain the system. So above ground, it will be a nice open little green space. I think 9,000 square feet.
With mosquitoes.
So, no, it'll be mowed. Yeah, everything else will be underground.
That's one of the primary reasons for wanting the drainage district, knowing where the property is, and then, putting it underground, because it's in a more congested area. You don't want an open water source out there, so there's a lot of engineering that went into it that does substantially add to the cost of the project for the developer. And this is just the mechanism to make sure that it's taken care of in the future.
Right.
So,
Because otherwise, like I say, they don't maintain it like they're supposed to, and then it ends up failing, and then we're on the hook and we have no money. I mean, it's happened all around town that drainage systems are failing, and we go through a lot of costs. It's borne by the entire town to maintain them.
So is that HOA fee fixed, or is that?
They will not have it. This is an alternative, there will be no HOA if we agree to this drainage district. The property owners won't have an HOA.
No HOA.
There will be no HOA. So see,
yeah, the taxing district will replace, there'll be no need for an HOA. The HOA would have owned that.
right,
but-
the HOA, they were only gonna form the HOA for the district, or for the
If the
drainage system.
cost of us to maintain that equipment goes up, the residents will be,
Right, that was actually one of the remarks from the engineer, was whether or not whether or not it was adjusted for inflation. We have not heard back from them yet. So,
that's
Any
my
other-
question too.
business before this board? Any comments from the public? We have another public comment period. Well, with that, my colleagues, what?
Hold on.
Oh.
You have some other things here on your agenda.
Oh, yeah, it's true. There are a couple of other things that we're gonna, geez, getting excited. A couple other, I like to call them housekeeping things. We're gonna authorize the highway superintendent to ascend to highway school next week. There are 2 appointments, one to Open Space, Agricultural and Trails. We're gonna appoint our new historian to the Historic Preservation Review Commission as a non-voting member. And we have an appointment to the Youth Commission. All those will be done next week. Okay? Well, now, it's gonna come with great, excitement to my board that I'm gonna ask that we move into executive session to discuss the sale of real property, and then after that, we'll go into attorney-client privilege to talk about pending litigation.
And for the boards, for the publics, I don't think there'll be any action on either of those items.
No action will be taken, and we will not come back and take any action afterwards. Can I get a motion to,
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? We're gonna make it quick. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.